It's like looking in a mirror. Only you don't like what you see. So we're live, first of all, 6:58, so I'm even early and before 7 o'clock, which is good. Had my live show this morning, so I got two today, which is good, also good. Got to take Milo up on a hike today, which was awesome. It was a beautiful day. He did fantastic. Wanted to go to the top of the hill, so that's good because he's getting older, and when people get older, they can't really walk as far. So he's doing fantastic. But the cool thing is, on our hike, which was awesome, we're walking down the trail, and we always let Milo off his leash so he can run around and be a dog and chase squirrels and birds and whatever. But as we're walking, Lisa noticed something up on the trail and said, "Hey, what's that?" And so we walked up to it, and it was a little turtle. And it was just walking across the trail. He was where he shouldn't have been because he's pretty far away from the creek. So Lisa took some videos of him and stuff, and we took him back to the creek and released him. He got all excited when he started hearing the water, because you could hear the water rolling over into the rocks and stuff, and so a little waterfall kind of action going there. So he got really excited when he could hear the water. He knew he was a long ways away from it, and I wouldn't want to have him stuck out in the field, which is kind of where he was. I don't know where he was going or what he was looking for, but he was definitely going the wrong direction. So we showed him to some little kids and stuff that were there, and they thought it was awesome. And Milo was helping him cross the trail, and it was very cool. So we got to see lizards and caterpillars and deer and all kinds of stuff on our hike today. So it was very awesome. It was nice to be back out. It's been winter and it's cold, and we haven't gone out there with Milo for a long time. So it was awesome to get out there and do that. But we're not talking about turtles tonight, although we can if you want. We're talking about blower manifolds. So take a look at the thumbnail that I have up. That was from a Whipple positive displacement Whipple twin screw kit that we ran on a 4.8 liter. And I think might have also run it on a 383 or something. And it did very well on both of them, as you would imagine. Very high boost levels on the 4.8 because it's not a terribly efficient motor, but it's a good sized blower. I think this was a 2.9 or something. So it certainly had plenty of capacity, and it had we talked about this either this morning or last night or something. We were talking about the blower manifolds having the intercooler, the air to water intercooler, kind of stuck down in the plenum. And this shows you inside the plenum, and it shows you a couple things. One, just big common open plenum underneath the blower. The Whipple blower, just like the factory 112 blower that they use on the 03 Cobra and the Lightnings and stuff, they have a little air to water brick, basically air to water intercooler located underneath them. And then the air goes down and blows down into this. You can kind of see this is a common plenum. The intercooler core would be just not too far up off of the floor of that. And then it goes over into, and you can see, and the reason that I put this picture up is so you guys could see the actual runner length in these manifolds. And it's become commonplace, and there's a lot of things going on here. One is that basically we have to have that. It has to be this way. If we're going to package the supercharger and the intercooler and the manifold and the runners and the injectors and all those things that have to take up a certain amount of real estate, this is kind of the packaging that has to happen. I know that I think Edelbrock or somebody did one with flipping the blower over and running the blower up and having runner length. That would help a lot, because having more runner in it would definitely help. But it would definitely help make more power. We've done that test many times. In fact, way, way back, and I've probably told this story before, but I did that test and demonstrated to Oscar Jackson that his very short runner manifold with the Eaton supercharger, the little M45 and M62s that he was running on, we did it on a Focus, but also on the Hondas and stuff. I was showing him that, look, the part of what's dictating your power curve, where this thing wants to make power, and this lack of low speed power, because you're getting rid of on the Focus, on the 2-liter Z-Tech Focus, you're getting rid of a lot of runner length, a ton of it. And you're going down to almost nothing, 3 or 4 inches or whatever, just so that you could, again, it's available real estate. You don't have, you have packaging constraints there. So you have to put the blower in, and the blower is this big. And so now we have this much room. There was no intercooler on it. It was just, again, a common plenum, fairly short runners, enough so that you could have a fuel rail and inject the fuel into it and that stuff. And I told him, I said, look, the reason that you have the curve that you have is not because you have a supercharger so much. I said, it's just because you have this manifold. They said it's a short runner manifold, and it's going to make less power than the factory manifold does up to some point. And I said, and then the short runners are going to take over. No, it's a blower. It doesn't need that. It doesn't need that. I said, look, I'll show you. I said, look, I'll run them both naturally aspirated. And so I just took the throttle body, made an adapter plate, put the throttle body, mounted it, took the blower off, mounted it on the blower, capped the bypass valve hole, and ran it that way and ran it. And I'm like, look, this is what, and that's even a 65 millimeter throttle body, which is bigger than the factory throttle body. I said, so look what it does. I said, it makes less power than the stock one does. And the stock one has runner length. And I said, and this is what happens when you have runner length. When you have length, you have reflected waves, and it provides a supercharging effect. It does all that. I said, and also it does that under boost. I said, so you're not getting that. And then when you have the blower, you have immediate boost response. So that's better. Having boost is good, but you're starting from a lower position. So you're having to catch up. I said, so when you step on the gas at 2,000 RPM or whatever on one of these supercharged deals, it doesn't feel that impressive because it's not a whole bunch better than stock was, because it's making so much less torque with that runner, and then it's gaining it back with some boost. I said, but it's not what it would be if you had a factory manifold and you had boost. And then later on, we would show him what happens when you add a turbo, and then you have that runner length and you have a turbo and you don't have a positive displacement blower. It's like, it's better all the way around. And then we see that on this one too. And again, it's the same deal. This is an LS, it's a 4.8. They're trying to fit it so it's fits under a reasonably number of hoods, maybe not a Corvette or something. I don't know if this particular kit would actually fit under there, but that's the constraint, is you have this much hood height and you have this much going before you hit valve covers or coil packs or other things. And you have this kind of room under the hood to fit things. And this is what has to happen. And invariably what they do is when they package these positive displacement blowers like this Whipple, which makes good boost and it can make good power. It's just that it doesn't do the same thing that it would do if you were applying positive pressure to something that had more runner length. And yet, because we have boost, it still does work. But if you try to, and if you take a look inside this common plenum, if you take a look inside there, you'll see there's just not really a way to, maybe you could do a cross ram kind of thing and then blow into that. Then you have to have less intercooler, and then that makes it less efficient because there's less intercooler. It's all this packaging game. And if you have an unlimited amount of hood height, like guys that run high rams on their cars, okay, you're obviously don't care about hoods anymore. So you could run a blower that has a big intercooler under it and runner length and package it like, you could have a high ram and then one of these brick intercoolers and a big blower on top of that. And then you have all this stuff sticking out of the hood, and you can have all that. Obviously the other way, a centrifugal supercharger with a front mounted or other kind of intercooler, one that's not mounted on the engine, and then run lots of runner length. And I did that test before too, where we changed that, and it's, it has the same kind of effect. The manifold has a decided effect on the power curve of the motor. And when we're looking to try to make power and optimize power in a given, when you're just trying to make peak power, that's fairly easy. You can get lots of peak power from short runner manifolds. You could make that work, and it does work. Not very many applications that I know of, short of possibly a Bonneville car, are that concerned with just a peak number. Not very many people just need, okay, all I need is 812 horsepower to go the speed that I need to get to. Even at Bonneville, if that were the case, if you could put that amount of power down, even there, you have a range that you have to get to in the last gear, whatever the last gear is, unless you have done your homework and scienced out your transmission, where you're doing all of the acceleration in like the lower gears, and they're ultra tall, and you get this big push truck going off the line like a lot of guys do. And then the last 2 or 3 shifts are all just, they drop the thing like 500 RPM or something, or 300 RPM. And so you're always in the power band and doing, and you're like, wah, 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 and then you're finally going. But even then, you would want some kind of power band where the peak thing just wasn't it, because you've got to get there first before you can use it. And obviously in a drag race application, it's average power production over the RPM spread that you're running for each of the gears, while you're running down the track. So whoever can make the most average power and whoever can put that down on the ground to the ground, that's the person that's going to accelerate the best. And obviously if they have the weight and the gearing and all those things come into play. But average power production, very, very important, much more so than just a peak number. So let's see what you guys got going on. It's Monday. Does anybody have today off? Okay, so the poll for tonight: would you give up intercooler sizing on one of these positive displacement blowers? Would you give up intercooler sizing to allow yourself to fit more runner length? Would you trade one of those for the other? Or would you rather just have all the intercooler and don't care about the runner length? Let me know. Let me know. Let's see what you guys got going on. Uncle Squirrel. Turbo's better than blower. You saw Caterpillars and John Deere's. That's right. We saw one deer. We saw several caterpillars, though, and lizards, too, little baby ones. Frosty cold beverage. Fast TVs in the house. Somebody also needs to be slow TV or medium speed TV. And while you're here, you're already here. Just hit the thumbs up. Yeah, do me a solid. Getting anxious to get my twin turbo big block fired up. Yep, that's good. We like turbos. Yes, we do. We like turbos. How about you? My Jackson M62. Yeah, I convinced. I think we ran M45 on the Focus, and then I talked him into putting an M62 on it, the big blower, because we were trying to get the thing to make. Back when I had the Z-Tech Focus, we were trying to get it to make 235 or 240 at the tire, which is about what a PI Mustang was doing. And we wanted to get it to run. We got to run 13s, and we wanted it to make the amount that the amount of wheel horsepower. And we didn't make the torque, obviously, but we wanted to make the wheel horsepower that the V8 made with our 4-cylinder. Love to have a PD blower for my 5-liter Explorer. I think the Kenny Bell guys need to figure out a way to put an intercooler for the 5-liter blowers, for the old school 5-liters. Can you do a test with a 4 spacer that goes under a 671 or 871 on a small block? That would add volume. So you just want to space the blower up from the manifold, right? I would like to try that. I've heard people tell me about that. I honestly don't see how it's going to help, but it would be interesting to see. Upside down blower. The only thing I don't know about upside down blowers is the gear oiling. Is it the same? Burns is in the house. Burnsy. I had an older 256 supercharger setup and had a couple of extra GT45s. There you go. Weld 2 turbos to a supercharger. And you get free cooling when it's when it's out of the hood. That's true. You get ram air. At the very least, you get cold air. Dustin, that's the exact Whipple I'm running. Black, though, not polished. But the polished ones, the polished ones get the chicks. I like it. Turbo supercharger. Take a look at the compound 3800 that we did. I have to admit that I remember doing that. I remember getting excited about that when I did that with Jimmy from HP when we did twin turbos feeding a supercharger. It's just cool. I mean, honestly, the blower should just get out of the way for the turbos and let the turbos do what they're supposed to be doing. You know, eventually I would learn that, but it is cool having the blower there too, because the turbos are much more responsive, especially if you're trying to use big ones. Ford did that with the Miami V8. The intercooler was on top, and the new GT500 Predator does that now, and the LSA was after that too. I twin charged my CRX in the early 2000s. Did you use a Jackson Racing supercharger on the CRX? What did you put on there? Richard, the only problem with running most of them upside down is where the fill port is. Yeah, that would be problematic. Let's see. I'm scrolling. Alan, you're watching from work. You have every day off. That's good and bad. I got today off, fixed up a broken bumper with some fiberglass. Nice. Getting paid to watch. Alan, even better. Weld 2 turbos to a supercharger, post throttle body, just big recirculating pump. No, I would not give up an intercooler size, but I would also not give up runner length. I'd just design it differently. Okay. So you don't even want to play the game. You're just like Richard, have you seen the runners on supercharged Mercedes or Jaguar engines? I believe they use 2 smaller cores mounted off to the side of the blower, maybe have runner length. I have, and we talked about that. We talked about the fact that you could mount the blower upside down. You could have runner length coming off of the top of it. You could also do 2 cores, and then if you did it differently, it could be done. I'd want to keep the cooling. The cooling would be better because not only you have 2 things that are happening for those guys that choose runner length. If you did, congratulations. That's always the right answer. but more intercooling is also the right answer. And the reason I say that is if you're looking at, let's say that we can talk about a detonation threshold here. If you get rid of some of the intercooler core and its efficiency in cooling, and you add runner length, you're doing 2 things. They're going to bring detonation in. One, you're getting rid of cooling, and the other, you're adding torque. So both of those things would make it more likely to detonate. So who here saw the dimpled diesel pistons? Who saw the golf ball dimpled diesel pistons? And somebody had tagged me on it on Facebook. So I'm sure we're going to talk about that stuff. Do factory LS or Hemi heads have multiple angles on the valve seat? I think an LS only has one. I went to pull my turbo square body into traffic a couple nights ago and started tuning, and of course, my fuel pump died as soon as the rear tires hit the pavement. That's right. It's cheaper to buy fiberglass body panels than engine parts. Speaking on PD blowers, did you scrap the twin M90 project? No, I have not. 671s are mounted sideways. Maximum recommended compression ratio for Mark IV 468 big block. Looking to go turbo intercooled. Would like to see 1,000 horsepower. You don't need 13 to 1. You don't need anywhere near that. You can do it on 8-to-1 or 9-to-1 or 10-to-1. And then it's going to be a function of what kind of fuel that you want to put in it. When my Scion 05 XB came out, I was hoping TRD was going to make a supercharger kit. I had an IHR supercharger. Oh, the Mazda Millennia. Yeah, was that a Miller cycle engine too? Safe to use dual 660 BTR springs on a Trek Norris cam, or should I just get 560 Beehive springs? Got the 660 springs in a parts bundle cheap and wanted to ask before I use it. You can, it'll work. It's you're overspringing the cam, but it'll still work. I remember I ran one of the Jax Racing superchargers on my little D16 single cam, my Civic Si hatch that I had, and also ran one on the Focus that I had, and it made a big difference. I mean, it was a lot of fun. It was a lot funner when we put the big blower on and the big mass air and air cleaner and that assembly, and then we put a ported head and cams in it, and then it was a lot more fun. We had to put a clutch in it too, though. Jason, I was just watching the 2.2 on the dyno. The LS reluctor wheel is crank speed and the distributor is cam speed. Did you really miss that? Did we miss what? It's a 4x signal. We have it selected for that. It's doing the right thing. Remember we tested the old Ford Racing 4.6 2V blower with the upside down M90 and long runners? I did do that, and I think I get more comments on that than any of the other Ford Racing blowers that I've ever done. The people still want that kit for some reason. It hasn't been available for a really long time, and quite honestly, it wasn't intercooled, and I don't think it was that great. But it was, it was easy to bolt on. It was nicely done. In my opinion, it did need an intercooler though. I'd like to fit my Jackson Racing snout on M90. So has anybody been keeping up on what's going on Sick Week? Because I saw Alex's dad Dennis was posting some stuff that people were complaining about something. So does anybody know anything about what's going on there? We're all driving to Leroy's right now. What's the most valve lift you've ever gotten out of a 1.6 small block Chevy head? Are you talking about a 1.6 rocker? I've never tried to get the maximum amount of lift out of a small block head, so I don't really know how to answer your question. I don't remember how big a camshaft we've ever run. Are you talking about a stock small block head, like a Vortec head, or a L98 head, or an aftermarket head? Let's hone in on your question. I don't know where Dan's been. Aerodynamics are a myth. They certainly are at like 10 or 20 miles an hour. One thing I saw was this not Rocket Mustang got protested because he had a one-piece front end, but it really wasn't one-piece front end because you had to take the hood off and then you could remove it. Is changing rocker ratio on the stock cam a big change? Not really, because you're not working with very much to begin with. No, it's not rocket. Someone was accused of cheating with a one-piece front end, and that's the only controversy. Okay. I feel it. So how's our poll doing? 74% saying no. Would you give up intercore size and efficiency for additional runner length? So most people are team intercore. So are there no? What are the classes in Sick Week? I mean, I know that's a pretty broad question. What are your thoughts on Sick Week? So Coyote swap the world. I would run Coyotes. I like them if they were ever available. What contemporary muscle car? Like a new one? Are you talking about? The next muscle car I'm gonna buy is a Chevelle. Casey for a toaster. Your XB is like right up there. The Godzilla motor seems to be a good motor, although they've had problems with some of them. But I like it. I've never run one, but from what I've read about it, it seems pretty cool. I know exactly, Alan. Would like to attend next year and compete with the J-Swap NSX in the 11-second class. That's what Jimmy and I are talking about doing that too in his car. You never try putting your fuel in a deep freezer before a dyno pull? I'm almost convinced that that's not the direction you want to go. The 396 needs to go in a Chevelle. That would be interesting. Although I don't think that I would run the 396 I like. I probably will end up selling that because I want to see it go in something that's like somebody's restoring or at least doing a reproduction of something like that. That's not what I want. I want something that makes a lot more power than that, and I want something that's a lot more drivable than that. Yeah, Burns, we would do a manual class because the NSX is a manual trans. And it's not, it does not have an LS in it. It has a J series. The Whipple 7.3 liter Ford truck kits have the blower on the bottom and the intercooler on top to increase runner length. I just want to run low tens at every track. Almost picked up a 70 Chevelle a while back, but the guy wanted to take out the motor. See, that's the kind of that's the kind of car I want. I want a car that doesn't have a motor in it. I don't. It doesn't have to be a matching numbers LS6 for me. In fact, I have an LS6 short block now. I have an LS6 short block in the same condition that I have this L78 short block. It's all the parts. Let's see, Ricky, what were you talking about? Don't put an LS in it. Yeah. When running methanol on an NA engine, is oil contamination normal? Yes. Didn't Smokey build a hot fuel motor that shook the world? Well, half of that statement is right. That's right, Burns. I suspect, Burns, maybe we'll go up against each other. Are you talking about me? Is that directed at me, yo? We should get up one weekend and talk about doing Sick Week next year, trying to hit Florida 2K in October. 64, 65, and 66 are my favorite Chevelle years. I like the 70 and 71 and 72. Chevelles deserve a big block. I'm sure if I bring the Chevelle to West Tech with anything but a big block, I'm going to hear it from Brule. We need an inline 6-powered Chevelle. That it probably will not be that. Have you ever run a positive displacement supercharger in parallel with the turbos? So you want them both feeding boost in at the same time? Where the turbo bypasses the supercharger? Well, they wouldn't really be in parallel then. But no, when we ran it, we didn't bypass the supercharger with the turbo because that's a lot of plumbing to make that happen. Put an old NASCAR engine. Don't want to do that either. What I want is the car to sound good, so it has to have a good exhaust on it. It has to have air conditioning because I'm going to take my wife out in it. It has to make a lot of power, and it has to drive around reasonably well. To me, that means some kind of turbo or blower thing. Oh, Burns out of Dragon Drive. What car are you going to run? Chevelle XR6 Turbo. I saw 68 Camino for sale. I like those too. My dad had a 67. He keeps telling me it was a 64. I think it was a 67. But a daily driver 72 Malibu 2-door 307 for 2000. See, that's what I want. I don't want like it's got to look like an SS though. It's got to look like a big block. It's got to look like an LS6 car. I want it to be an SS clone, but I don't want it to be a numbers matching thing. The NSX would be in Freaks, which is basically everything not V8, and top 5 was all under 9 seconds, I believe, maybe under 10, but the winner was an 8:79 average. Yeah, I'm not going there thinking that we're going to spend the money to win something like that. I just want to go there and run and have it not break. That would be a win for me. The Chevelle 540, yep, probably not that. I haven't heard anything about the Buick of GNX coming out. I thought Buick was no longer a company. Heads are all together and working great. Intercooler is put together in Dyno again next week. Before the cheap intercooler let go, I hit 890 and 779. What Burns? What motor is that? See, Admiral, that would be a perfect one. I want one with red with black stripes. A ZZ50T is a perfect mild kind of big block. A Richmond 5-speed's okay. I have a T56 for it already. Anybody doing the Redwood Dragon Drive, Northern California? When is that? Should I take the Omni on that? I currently work for a modern classics company. We're offering Chevelle with LT options. I wouldn't want LT. I would rather have LS than LT. How about a 74 S3 slope nose Chevelle? The SRT4. It's 4-wheel drive, so I doubt it would be in the same class. Mostly just teasing, but would be fun to run up against a well-rounded NSX. An SRT4 would be cool, though. If you're making 800 horsepower at the tire, it's not in the same class as the NSX. Have you ever considered an inner chiller setup? Yes, we've talked about that many times. A 4-door Malibu? Nope, not interested in a 4-bore. Has to be a 2-door. Does anybody here know if the Corrado G60 G ladder was intercooled? I don't think that it was. G ladder. Let's see. I don't think it was. Let's do a month-long drag and drive. That's a long time. I don't think I could be out of work that long. Drag and drive is about finishing 100%. That's all we want to do. I don't even. I told Jimmy. I said, look, if this thing runs 10s or if it runs 9s, then it's going to run 1090s or whatever, and go out and just run consistent, and it will launch easy and then run hard out the back door, and then until the last, until after you finish your last run, and then it's all official. Then if you want to try to break it and run a 990 or whatever, then it would be okay. Take the Trail 90. Yep. The Trail 90 would run 40 miles an hour, something like that in the quarter, probably. I have a 68 Chrysler 300. That's cool. I still want to test one of those sonogram intake manifolds. I think I'm just going to make one. I think your old Gen 6454 with twin GT45s would be close to perfect on a budget. It definitely would be cheap. I've been told put a Ford 9-inch in my Chevelle, dragging my feet. I want it to be all Chevy. Well, what is it you're trying to do? Water-cooled turbo suggestions for an LS408. Yeah, we don't normally run the water-cooled ones, but a lot of the cheap stuff online is water-cooled. Mike, your 70 Chevelle was a SS396. Nice. Flapper cowl hood. I like that. All that's good. A Z24 Cavalier also had cowl induction. I have a Fox that I could put something in and do a drag and drive on that too. Burns, what's an Avenger head? So OG green, you like the 72? '70 Chevelle with T56 and some kind of torque monster engine. Well, if it has a ZZ502, there's a lot of stuff that you could do to that motor. There's a guy down the street that has a 60. He's got a 69 Camaro that was in a crash, and he also has a 67 Chevelle, I think. They've been sitting for a long time. '72 is the really last good year of Chevelles. I really need to look at the fronts and the backs of them closer to see which one I like. I know I like a 70, and Lisa loves them too. She also likes it, which I like too. The a Viper GTS would be would be awesome too. Where can you find a 406 for a Gen 2 LT4 96 Camaro? So you want to build a stroker version of that? It doesn't have to be a. It doesn't have to be an LT4. A 406 you can make out of any kind of small block. Brad, the next thing is going to be the 2.2 Chrysler. We're going to do testing with that. I'm going to redo the cam test on the LS. And then the guys from Performance Designs are going to send one of their intakes out. I don't know when that's going to be there. And then also the Brian Tooley sent out their L83 and their harness and computer and everything. So I can also run that. Oh, Burns, the Dodge Avenger. Okay. I thought that was a kind of cylinder head that you were talking about. I didn't realize it was a vehicle. I'm familiar with the Avenger. My parents ordered a 69 SS396 Chevelle with a bench seat because my mom wanted us boys up front with her. Nice. So that she could put her hand out and stop you when you from going through the windshield. Because that's the mom arm is like much stronger than any kind of like seatbelt would be. So the NA 2.4 was better. The heads were better. Think you should do a Trans Am. I do like Trans Ams. I like Smokey and the Bandit. Get that Chevelle. It's a moneymaker. I don't care about. I wouldn't buy it because I think that it would go up in value, or I would buy it because it's something that speaks to me. Just like the GLH. I didn't buy the GLH because I thought it would make money. That's not why. Like the Chevy Sprint Turbo, I didn't buy that because I could make money off of it. It's not that. Making money is a separate thing than doing that. Do you ever run your Nova at Sacramento? I don't have a Nova anymore. I gave it away, but I may go with Oliver, and we may run it either at Sacramento or up at Sears Point. Have you ever had a 2JZ on the engine dyno? I have not. I have been over when they're running them on the chassis dyno, but I've never owned one. Comp cam still shows a 2.2, 2.5 Dodge cam, 234, 234. That seems like a lot. I would doubt very seriously that that Comp has any of those in stock. Yep, the mom brakes. Would a Garrett G42 1450 be too small for a 408? Probably not. What kind of power are you trying to make? Oh, somebody made good heads. Can they Burns? Do they respond well to porting? Can have guys ported them? Oh yeah, every mom was like sticking their arm out. Rocky Mountain Race Week. I know Chad announces for that. I think. Yeah, the Seinfeld episode where they stop short. 502 with a GMPP ramjet intake and a couple of S475s. Yeah, a couple of S475s because one is just kidding around. You need two of them. For LS as a street daily, replace the driver's side valve cover with the updated unit from 2011. If you're a dedicated race engine, you will be replacing oil so often you won't burn it up anyway. You mean because it's drawing oil vapor up into the motor? Is that what you're talking about? We don't run that anyway, but does the Nova have a certified cage? Are you asking me about that? First of all, I don't have a Nova anymore. Oliver does, and there's no cage in it. Two Hacks Garage, what's up? So let's take a look at our poll. 76% saying no, they would not. People don't want to give up the intercooler. I don't blame them. Cooler is better. You can never be too cool. Why'd you give the Nova away? Because I was moving and we had to get rid of it, basically, was kind of the big reason. But also it was a good thing. I thought it was a fun thing for the channel. The guy that won it is a cool kid, and a kid, he's a guy. Put a turbo diesel in it, did the smoky burnout like he was supposed to. Now it's got a small block modified 305 in it and a different trans, and he said I could come over and do burnouts in it whenever I want. But what I'd like to do, we want to take it to the drag strip because it has like a 307 gear in it, I think, and so it's all wrong for drag racing. So it'd be good to take it there and run 17s or 16s or 15s or whatever it runs, and then do things to make it better. Flat plane fool. So you want heads that flow 500 plus CFM? I don't think you can get Godzilla heads to flow that much, but there are big block forward heads that will flow that much. Richard, I'll try to give you a call this week if you have a few minutes. Yep, no problem. Thompson says temporarily out of stock. Yeah, I don't think they've probably sold one of those in a long time. Yeah, Twisted. I remember riding in my grandmother's car. I remember when I was really little, curling up down underneath where the heater vent would come out on the floor because that's where the heater came out because it was nice and warm there. But that was like a '67 Oldsmobile or something that she had. Yeah, and the seatbelts. I had seatbelts in my '70 Camaro, which was the first car that I owned. But we didn't really wear them very often. Tornado, yep. Front wheel drive. Some of the Hemi heads can do 500. Oh yeah, recal. Especially if you had a station wagon or something, you definitely would be all over. Because you climb over from the back into the front, pinch your fingers on like a metal fold-up piece all the time. I think that the big block Chevy trick flow A460 heads, the CNC ones. I don't think that they were quite 500, but I think they were getting up there though. And I'm sure some of the fancy ones probably do go there. Ooh, I got to call Fidanza about a flywheel for the RB25. Can we get a video covering different displacement engines to hot side AR ratio? Seems too many people have a hard time picking the right size turbo. Always a hot topic. 4853600.96125. I've run the same turbo on different displacements already. I'll have to take a look and see if there's something up already. And really, I for a different displacement, I don't think I'd just pick a different AR. I think I would pick a different turbo. Adrian, I need a flywheel for the RB25. I need a flywheel and bolts basically for the RB25. And it's horsepower goal. That's right, for the turbo stuff. Yeah, station wagons are awesome. I still like them. I think they're cool. We had a Plymouth Fury station wagon, I think, with the wood paneling on the side. What are the limits of the Gen 6 block? I don't know. I haven't done the big bang on it yet, but we know that it's over 1100 horsepower. In Hawaii, they're talking about not letting people ride in the bed. Yeah, you can't do that here. Yeah, Adrian, even if you have a damaged one, because honestly, we're not using it to start anything. It doesn't have to have a ring gear on it or anything. All we need is something that bolts to the crank, and then something that has the clutch bolts so that we can bolt our dry plate to it. I want a 68 or 69 Buick Sport Wagon. That would be good. Are you building an RB or just doing a stock testing? I have a stock one right now, but we're doing like I always do with a whole bunch of different things on. It's an RB25, but it's all stock right now. So we'll do, turbo upgrades, intercooler upgrades, and intake manifold upgrades, and yada, yada, yada. I grew up riding around the back of my truck in the 70s. A lot has changed since the 70s. I'm surprised I haven't got pulled over already with Milo rides in the back of the truck right now. I remember flying kites from the back of my dad. My dad had I think it was a 67. He's telling me it's a 64, but I don't think that they had his was a factory 396 El Camino. It was a 4-speed with a 375 horse 396. And we flew kites from the back of it. I mean, I remember having all of the Little League kids in the back of that thing and him doing donuts in it. It was awesome. Can you get a regrind cam ground to a particular cam card? There's a limit to how much they can regrind. I do need a ready intake. I promise it loses low and mid range. I don't doubt that. It's much, much shorter. And that's one of the things I wanted to show people, Adrian, with this test is because I try to look up like RB testing. And just like when I looked up the L28 turbo testing, it's just not available. The information's not there. Everybody does the same thing. Oh, let's just turn the boost up. Well, that's great. And if you put a cam in it or port the head or do whatever, put a Grady intake manifold and rev it up another 1,000 RPM, all that's beneficial. But I want to show people what it really does. The long runner manifold is going to be way better. It's going to be the turbo is going to be way more responsive and stuff. We used to ride in the back of trucks. I remember when I played Pop Warner football, the coach's truck, we used to ride in the back of the truck to Pop Warner games on the freeway going to other cities. How about LS ITB setups? Yes, tested those cross rams and downdrafts. Kites on a fishing pole are good. And then when they came out with the dual string kites, we used to have, so we would put needles and nails and sometimes razor blades and stuff on them because we would have kite fights with them, and you try to slash up the other guy's kite. Subaru Brat, yep, with the suicide seats. Car guy, I'm working on LS9 bottom end. Good start. LSA ZL1 blower, E85, 92 notch with the BTR stage 4 cam. All that will be good. Long runner's the way to go in the RB. Certainly. If and you would argue that even more so if as you go up in turbo size, because if you go up in turbo size, you go away from turbo response. So that's where the long runner manifold like comes into its own. Richard, do you have a race car? I don't have a race car. I think the last race car I had was maybe the Bonneville car. A hobby car, 71 240Z, 88 5-liter LX Mustang, original owner of that. The 85 Omni GLH Turbo. And a super trick, and by that I mean stock Silverado, and a Trail 90. Razor blade kite fights. It was good because you could, if you had, because you had the like little lever deal, and you could, and so both the strings would pull on, and they would dip the kite. So you'd just get the tail right, and then you could dip the kite, and it would zoom like back and forth. And then so you'd try to get your string like shorter, because if you were on the inside, you could basically destroy the other guy. There wasn't much information when I owned my S13 with an RB25, but only ran the Grady intake for a few days before putting the stock intake back on. It probably would feel terrible. It'd like be like putting these short runner manifolds on an LS. They're just awful. And on a 6-cylinder, it's even worse. And on an RB25, it's even worse. It's just not. I remember guys putting those STR intake manifolds on their Hondas too. I'm like, that's a terrible idea. Oh no, it's a boosted manifold. I'm like, no, it's not. It's just a short runner manifold. It's awful. Yeah, the long runner stuff would be way better. And unless you're getting these things to run to 10,000 RPM or whatever, then you could take advantage of where those things are going to work. I'll post a video tomorrow of an R32 RB26. Oh, cool. A stroker one. Skunk baited intake for the RB25. I didn't know about that. Grady did though. And lots of guys now have copied that. I think CX Racing and those guys have those. Alan, so you went to the drive-in movies? That should be one of my posts. That should be one of my polls. Should do walk around videos on them. When it was done, I had an 89 LX SC fastback. Cool. $13 people in a 70s Honda Civic. That seems like a lot. Oh, an R32. So that's a Skyline then. I thought that you were talking about you did a 3.2 liter version of the 2.6. Which again, guys doing NA versions of those. That's cool. Just so easy to make power with boost. A 70 Civic was for Italian, especially a 70 Civic. Public pools. Yeah, we used to be able to go to. We used to be able to go. I think it was like 25 cents or something like that. We used to be able to go to the high school pool, and I remember that they had these giant they were like diaper pins, but you would your key for your locker, you would pin this onto your shorts, and then everybody had these when they were in the pool. And then, but we could go there to the high school pool and we could jump off the high dive. They had two like competition springboards, and then they had one high dive, and we could. It was awesome. How much better LS1 heads over a stock 4.8? In fact, an LS1 head, a 241 head, is not better than a stock 4.8 head, because a stock 4.8 head is going to be a 706 or an 862, and an LS1 head is not better than that. It's worse. An interesting conversation would be observed versus corrected dyno data. For example, an observed 500 horsepower small block Chevy 302 and a 500 horsepower 454, and explain the inertial frictional correction horsepower added to each. I don't. You wouldn't see a big change from the frictional factor. You would see a big change from corrected versus observed, but that part of it is going to be very, very small, actually. But the actual data and then the corrected number could be different depending on what's going on during the day. If it's really, really hot outside, depending on what the barometer says, how much moisture there is in the air. You see big changes in guys that do this testing like at altitude, which which is why guys testing supercharged and turbocharged stuff at altitude, the numbers are always bogus. The best intake for a 6.2 Ford truck motor. Isn't there only the stock one? I don't think there's anything else, right? My RBS at 13 would outrun Cobb Stage 2 STIs after I got a Pro Tune, but it was still under 300 wheel horsepower. Yeah, because they weren't rated anywhere near that. It had to have more than a tune, unless the tune was obviously changing the boost a lot. Bike's peak altitude. Yeah. You can overspeed the blower like that. But I'm specifically thinking about the guys that did a lot of testing, like in the Albuquerque area. Anything that's done at 5,000 or 6,000 feet, and you have a 25% correction factor, it's just not accurate. Freya. So I watched the cathedral head versus the Recport head. Yeah, it showed, but and the thing that I wasn't even trying to show you the difference in those cams. I was just trying to show you that, because your question before was do you have to tailor the cam for the intake to exhaust flow relationship of the head? And the answer really, at least according to the results of that video, is no, because it still does that. You don't pick a particular cam because, oh, look, I have an airflow research head and it has so much exhaust flow relative to intake flow. Well, do you really do that? We always put the same kind of camshaft in it. It seems to work really well. Just supercharged my 6.2 LS3 with the Magnuson 2650. Can definitely tell low RPM power is down under 2,500. It's down from the stock NA one. How do I feel about extrude hunting? I worked with those guys for a long time, and it works really, really well, depending on what you're trying to do. The reason for the problem with the correction factor has nothing to do with people lying about it. It's just that correction factors for dynos were calculated for NA motors. They were not calculated for boosted motors. Particularly, they were not calculated for turbo motors, which to some extent actually make up for some of that loss in power. Because what they do is the turbo spins faster. If you run 10 pounds at sea level and then you run 10 pounds at 5,000 feet, you don't get the same loss in power that you do if you run an NA motor at sea level and then you run the NA motor at 5,000 feet. Yet the correction factor is still the same. So the turbo is self-compensating, and you still get that all of that extra correction factor, and so you have a false number basically with the turbo application at altitude. Any plans on covering performance options for the 6.6 liter LT8? I haven't ever run one of those, but a 6.6 liter L8T is going to be like all the other ones. It's just bigger. Your Subaru is faster than your buddy's C6 Corvette? And on that note, it is time to go. I got stuff I got to get going. I got stuff to do. Thank you guys all for showing up. I will be back in the morning. But I think today might have been a holiday for, I didn't even check. Was today a holiday for the where the market's open today? I honestly didn't even look, but I will be back looking at it tomorrow. But I will also be back on a live feed tomorrow. I'll see you later.